The FBI arresting a Texas man on Thursday for his alleged connection to ISIS, claiming he tried to plan a terror attack on American soil. 28-year-old Anas Saeed is accused of attempting to support the Islamic State, all from his apartment in Houston. He's now facing charges connected to trying to provide material support to the terror group. For more insight on this case, we are joined by NewsNation national security contributor, former FBI, a special agent and CIA officer, Tracy Walder. Tracy, thanks for making the time tonight.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
And Tracy, you say there is one thing in particular that is surprising you about this case, also that his ego could be a great thing for us and a bad thing for ISIS. Tell me more about that.
I mean, the fact that he was bragging basically to everyone and anyone online and in person too in his apartment complex about what he was doing is actually very surprising. Obviously, when I worked terror networks in my day, they were pretty tight-lipped about him, quite frankly, and we have far more means upon which people use to get this information out there digitally. And so I think what's happening right now with ISIS is they are really taking in anyone and everyone who might be willing to commit an attack, and they're not necessarily vetting them in the way that some other terrorist groups did.
That is
And that's a good
fascinating.
thing for us.
Yeah, so tell me about that, because ISIS does seem to be powerfully stepping up its recruiting methods. But you're saying that this potentially tells us a little bit about their vetting process at this time.
In my opinion, it seems to me, and I hate to be so blunt, that they don't necessarily have a vetting process, which is very different than how Al Qaeda and some other terrorist network groups work. They are very careful about who they let in and how they train them up. What this is telling me is that with ISIS right now, they may not even be training them in a conventional way. Even back in 2011, we saw individuals traveling to Syria, traveling to Iraq to train with ISIS. We're not necessarily seeing that anymore. They're being radicalized and trained online and never vetted in person.
What specific remarks are you tracking that are concerning to you, and also his creation of propaganda for ISIS?
Yeah, it sounds like that was his job, was to create sort of PR propaganda. It looks like he had been looked at in 2017 and 2019 based on some of his internet activity attempting to either contact ISIS or praise ISIS. And so the FBI, to their credit, never really took him off of their radar, if you will, and were able to make an arrest now when he started actually talking about who he was targeting and the attacks he wanted to commit.
And it is good that he was on their radar, but you say something disturbs you about how authorities essentially took his word on something in 2019. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so in 2019, just in reading through what the Justice Department released, it sounds to me like he told the FBI, hey, look, I'm just using my computer for school and for reading, maybe playing some games. I'm not interested in ISIS anymore. And they just sort of walked away. And I think that's concerning. But again, I don't know if the FBI really did keep him on their radar and just obviously isn't saying anything about it.
And meanwhile, we're hearing from his lawyer. He has been speaking to the press saying that his client has no actual ability to do harm to Americans. What is your assessment on that claim?
I obviously completely disagree with that claim. How do we know that he has absolutely no ability to do any harm to Americans? If he was saying these things, most people don't say these kinds of things. So the fact is he wanted to do harm. Now, did he go out and purchase the means to do so? That I'm uncertain of, but it doesn't matter either way. He was saying that he wanted to do these things.
Tell me more about how a young man from Houston can be radicalized, and how does social media play into this? Is ISIS monitoring social media and the internet for Americans who they can recruit, or how does that work?
100%, that is what they are doing. They are monitoring social media, both open social media and then closed social media channels like Signal and those kinds of things that are encrypted, to basically target assets in the same way that I did, obviously, at the CIA. Individuals that might be sympathetic to their cause, individuals that might be vulnerable. It's very, very similar to how gangs recruit, quite frankly.
Okay. Is there anything else about this case notable or that you want to add, something that we should be paying more attention to going forward?
Sure. I think the one thing was how he was identifying targets, how he was finding these individuals. He didn't seem to have a clear picture of what he was doing, but he knew that he really wanted to go after synagogues or Jews. And he also wanted to go after former military members who had been, quote, responsible for killing Muslims. And so I think that then got me to think about social media and the way I even use social media. I could be a target. A lot of people could be targets based on some of their past or things that they have done. And so I think we might need to be careful about what we post about ourselves.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.